Rain soaked the back alley behind the bakery as Aaliyah hauled out a trash bag, her arms aching from another long shift. She was used to being invisible in this part of the city, just another poor girl trying to survive. But tonight, something shifted. A soft cough broke the silence. She rounded the dumpster and froze. 3 children stood there, drenched, pale, and impossibly still. Their silver hair clung to their faces, and their clothes looked hand-stitched, old-fashioned, untouched by time, even though they were soaked. The smallest boy knelt beside a torn trash bag, reaching for a stale roll. "Stop, don't eat that," Ilya said, heart squeezing. All 3 turned. Their eyes were not normal clear, reflective, almost luminescent. The eldest girl stepped forward, posture precise, voice soft and unfamiliar. "We meant no offense," she said. "We sought food." "You shouldn't eat garbage," Ilya murmured. "Wait here." Inside the bakery, she gathered leftover bread and pastries, ignoring the sting of her manager's warnings. When she returned, the children hadn't moved, as if the world didn't touch them unless invited. "These are for you," she said, placing the box on a crate. The boy reached first, hunger sharp in his eyes. The middle girl's lips trembled at her first bite, as if warmth was foreign to her. The eldest girl watched Ilya carefully, then bowed her head. "We accept your kindness. I am Leora. These are Morel and Kale." Ilya smiled. "I'm Ilya, and you can come back if you're hungry. Just knock." The children exchanged quiet glance, meaningful, protective, ancient. Leora stepped forward and placed something wrapped in dark cloth into Ilya's hand, a token of gratitude. They drifted into the rain, disappearing at the alley's end. Ilya unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a single black-silver coin, warm to the touch despite the cold. Its crest and ornate crown above 3 stars glowed faintly as she turned it in her palm. Strange letters curled around the edge, older than anything she had ever seen. A whisper rose in her mind. Vesper. The street lamps flickered. Across the street, tall figure stood in the rain, mist swirling around his long, dark coat. Red eyes shone briefly before fading back into the shadows. Ilya blinked. The figure was gone, but on the rooftop above her, unseen, the Vampire King watched. Eleran Vesper had followed his children's minds, expecting fear or desperation, but what he saw was a human girl offering kindness without hesitation. A girl who defied cruelty. A girl who spoke the old name without knowing it. How curious. The coin in her hand was not a gift. It was a summons. "She will return tomorrow," the king murmured into the night. "And I will see her with my own eyes." Ilya slipped the coin into her pocket, shivering as she headed home. Unaware that her small act of kindness had already changed her fate, caught the attention of the most powerful creature in the city. Ilya spent the whole next day replaying the strange night in her mind. The silver-haired children, their formal voices, the warm coin with its haunting crest, and that figure in the rain, silent, tall, watching her with eyes she wasn't supposed to notice. By evening, she had convinced herself it had all been stress and imagination. But when she stepped into the bakery's back kitchen, a flutter of nervous hope stirred inside her. Maybe they won't come. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe a soft knock tapped against the back door. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. The exact rhythm from the night before. Ilya's heart jumped. She hurried to the door and pulled it open. There they stood, Leora, Mirel, and Calrain, dripping from their silver lashes. Their small hands clasped, as if holding on to each other more tightly than last night. "You're back," Ilya whispered, warmth blooming in her chest. "You said we may knock," Leora replied calmly, though her eyes glimmered with something like relief. "So, we have come. Come inside, quickly, before my manager sees." The children entered, their movements feather silent. Ilya dried. their hair with a clean towel, starting with Kale, who watched her every motion as if memorizing kindness itself. "You don't have to do this," Morel said softly, voice dipped in uncertainty. Ilya smiled. "I want to." She gathered warm leftovers vegetable soup, soft rolls, honey milk, and arranged them at the staff table. The children sat with grateful discipline, folding their hands before eating. The moment they tasted the food, tension drained from their faces. "This is warm," Kale breathed, as if the warmth itself was magic. "It comforts us," Leora admitted, glancing at Ilya. "You comfort us." Ilya's throat tightened. "That's what people should do. Take care of each other." The children exchanged a look, quick, quiet, meaningful. "Is your guardian okay with you being here?" Aliyah asked casually. "Yes," Leora answered too quickly. "He is always near." A chill crept across Ilya's skin. "Near?" Morel nodded. "He watches from shadows. Always." Ilya tried not to shiver. Even before she could respond, the kitchen door slammed open. "Mrs. Talbot, what is this?" she barked, pointing at the children as if they were rats in her kitchen. "I told you no strays, no charity, no exceptions." Ilya stepped in front of the table, shielding the children without thinking. "They're just eating. Please, don't. Mrs. Talbot's voice climbed higher. "Do you want to shut down? Do you want me fired? You think we can afford a scandal about feeding unknown children at night?" "They're not unknown," Ilya argued. "They're enough," Mrs. Talbot snapped. "They eat, they leave, and if you ever bring them in again, you're fired. Understand?" Ilya swallowed hard. Her shoulders trembled. Losing this job would break her. But sending these children back out into the cold? She turned, heart pounding, and looked at their small faces, fearful, resigned, as if they'd expected rejection. She steadied her breath. "No," Ilya said quietly. "I won't push them out." Mrs. Talbot stared at her as if she'd slapped her. "You ungrateful fine. One more meal. Just one. After that, they're gone." She stormed out, slamming the door. Silence settled like snow. Ilya sank onto a stool, massaging her temples. "Sorry you saw that," she muttered. Leora stood, her small figure strangely regal. "You defended us. You risked yourself." "It wasn't a risk," Ilya lied. Morel shook her head. "It was. We know it was." Kale tugged gently on Ilya's sleeve. "Why do you care?" Ilya looked at him, really looked. His reflective eyes glowed softly under the kitchen lights. "Because you deserve safety," she whispered. "You deserve warmth. You deserve someone to fight for you." Their expressions softened. Something ancient and quiet rippled through the air, brushing against her skin like a silent vow. "He is pleased," Morel murmured. "Who?" Leah asked. "Our father," Leora replied. "Our king." Before Ilya could question it, Kale put a small hand on hers. "We will come again, if he allows it." Ilya smiled weakly. "Tell him he can come too. I don't bite." The kitchen lights flickered. A cold wind stirred from outside. The window, two crimson eyes glowed for the faintest heartbeats, watching, evaluating, deciding. Ilya didn't see them, but the Vampire King did see her. And for the first time in centuries, he murmured a word he rarely used. "Interesting." Ilya couldn't stop thinking about the children after they left. She replayed every expression: Leora's guarded strength, Mirel's shy gratitude, Kale's fierce loyalty disguised as innocence. And underneath it all, that strange, heavy sense of being watched by morning. Exhaustion clung to her like damp fabric. She barely made it through the shift, hands trembling slightly every time someone entered the bakery. When evening came, she found herself hovering near the back door long before closing time. Ridiculous. They might not come. They might have gotten in trouble with that guardian they kept mentioning. Still, when the familiar rhythm of knocks sounded 3, 2, when her heart leaped. She opened the door swiftly, but only 2 children stood there. The bakery's back room was silent except for the storm outside. Elia sat on the floor with Leora and Morel on either side of her. Both girls pressed close, not out of fear of her, but fear of what might be happening to their little brother. Minutes dragged like hours. Elia rubbed Morel's back gently. "Your father. He'll bring Kale home. He seemed powerful." "Powerful is not the word," Leora murmured. "He is absolute." Elia swallowed. That matched what she'd felt the moment he stepped into the room. An authority so immense it made the walls feel too small to contain him. And yet she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid with him, as if his presence pulled her into a world she wasn't built to survive. Then a tremor rippled through the air. Shadows crawled across the floor as if pulled by an invisible tide. The old fluorescent light flickered wildly. Morel grabbed Elia's sleeve. "He's returning," Leora whispered. A gust of cold wind swept through the room. The vampire king materialized from the darkness, coat rippling around him. In his arms, cradled carefully, was Kale. The boy stirred, eyelids fluttering. "Father." Elia lunged forward before she realized she was moving. "Is he hurt?" The king lifted his gaze to her, sharp, unreadable. Humans frightened him, but they did not have time to break him. Morel raced to her brother, clutching him tightly. Kale blinked up at Elia, reaching out with his small hand. "You said you would help," he whispered. "And he heard you." Elia's breath hitched. "I didn't do anything." The king's voice was quiet, but it hit her like a cold wind. "Your courage carried to my senses. It moved my children. And thus it moved me." Leora stepped forward, bowing her head. "Father, they sought to harm us because they sensed our blood. They were hunters." Leah stiffened. "Hunters, as in?" "Men who stalk what they do not understand," the king said. "But they are no longer a concern." Elia didn't need details. His tone carried the weight of a final sentence. Kale tugged on her sleeve weakly. "You stayed with my sisters." "Of course I did," she said softly. "Your family." The children exchanged stunned glances, as if the concept was foreign. The king watched her with unsettling focus. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to still, the air thickening with something unspoken. "You speak lightly of loyalty," he murmured, "yet you carry it heavily." Elia flushed. Anyone would have helped. "No," he said simply. "Most would not." His gaze drifted to her apron pocket, the coin she carried. "You still keep the mark?" "I was going to give it back." "It chose you," he said. "You do not return what acknowledges you." Her pulse pounded. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, a sudden pain stabbed behind her temples. She gasped, grabbing the table for support. "Elia!" Morel cried. The king's eyes sharpened. He stepped closer, shadows curling at his feet. "You feel something." Elia winced as a strange pressure pulsed inside her skull, like a language she'd never learned, trying to force itself into her thoughts. "It's the coin. It's humming." Leora inhaled sharply. "She hears it." "Hears what?" Elia demanded, breath shaking. The king lowered his voice. An echo of old blood. An ancient tongue. A call only the marked can sense. "That shouldn't be possible," Leora whispered. "She is human." The king studied her with a new intensity, as if seeing her for the first time. "She is not entirely ordinary." Elia stared at him. "What are you saying?" "Your instincts. Your courage. Your intuition. Your reaction to the crest. They are not typical of your species." His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Something in you resonates with the old language." "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," he said. "In time." A knock suddenly rattled the back door loud. Aggressive, Elia froze. Leora stiffened. Morel trembled. The king's eyes flared crimson. "More hunters," he murmured. They followed the scent of fear. Elia's heart slammed against her ribs. "We have to hide the kids." The king stepped into the center of the room, shadows swirling like living smoke. "No, you will stay behind me." The banging grew louder. Leora whispered, grabbing her hand, "Do not fear. Father is the night." The king looked back at her, and in that moment, Elia saw not a monster, but a protector forged in ancient storms. "You fed what the world ignored," he said quietly. "Tonight, the night will repay that debt." He raised his hand, the door burst open, and darkness came alive. The door slammed open with a violent crack, splinters flying across the bakery floor. Elia instinctively shielded the children, pulling them behind her. But they clung to her instead, trembling yet oddly trusting that she, simple human girl, could protect them. Footsteps echoed inside the darkened doorway. 3 men stepped in thick coats, gloved hands, and eyes too sharp to be ordinary criminals. They carried weapons shaped from silver and bone. Leora whispered, "Hunters." The vampire king didn't move from his position in front of them. Shadows pooled around his boots like a living sea. His voice dropped to a frigid murmur. "You should not have come." The hunters didn't flinch. "We sensed your spawn," the leader hissed. "Your scent leads us here. You grow careless, king." Elia's breath caught. They knew who he was. One hunter pointed at her. And her. "She carries your mark." Why would a human bear the seal of the Vesper line? Elia froze. The king's crimson gaze sharpened. "You speak of things you cannot comprehend." "We comprehend enough," the hunter spat. "Humans who bear vampire marks become leverage." Morel whimpered. Kale clutched Elia's leg. Elia stepped forward without thinking. "Stay away from them." Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. The king glanced at her, surprised. "Elia, do not approach them." The hunters laughed. "She defies you." "A human defies the king of night." "How insulting." The king's expression darkened. Elia swallowed, but she didn't step back. "They're children. They're terrified. If you want someone, take me." "Leave them, Elia. Stop," the king commanded. A dangerous note in his voice. But she didn't. Her heart was pounding too hard, too loud. The hunters raised their weapons. The shadows responded, instantly roaring outward, curling like black serpents ready to strike. The king lifted a single finger butt before he could act. Something else happened. Something impossible. Something Elia didn't understand. A whisper rose in her throat, soft at first, then stronger. The words weren't English. They weren't any language she knew. They came from a place older than memory, older than fear. Veshta? Saren Velkara. Entire room froze. The hunters stiffened, eyes widening. The children gasped. And the king went still as stone. Elia slapped a hand over her mouth. What did I just say?" The hunters stepped back, panic overtaking their bravado. "She speaks the old tongue." "A human cannot," the king's gaze burned. "She speaks my tongue." The shadows trembled around him. Elia staggered backward. I don't even know what that was." The hunters exchanged panicked looks. "This is no ordinary human. She's been chosen." Elia shook her head desperately. No, I'm just a bakery worker." "I'm nothing. You are not nothing," the king growled. The crest awakened something dormant. "What does that mean?" She whispered. The king didn't answer. His eyes glowed brighter than blood. The hunters tried to regroup. One raised his weapon only for the shadows to lunge, slamming all 3 men against the wall. Their weapons clattered to the floor. "You threaten my heirs," the king said, voice like a storm breaking. You threatened the marked. Its gaze flicked to Aaliyah, and you dared to frighten her. Shadows tightened. The hunters choked, gasping. "Stop!" Aaliyah cried without thinking. "Please don't kill them." The king turned his head, incredulous. "They came to kill you." "Then don't be like them," she whispered. "Please." For a moment, something flickered across his expression: annoyance, curiosity, and something far more dangerous. He lowered his hand. The shadows receded. The hunters collapsed, unconscious but breathing. Aaliyah exhaled shakily. "Thank you." The king stepped toward her, stopping barely a breath away. "You spoke sacred words older than this city's stones. You command mercy from a king who has not granted it in centuries." He leaned in slightly. "What are you, Elia?" She shook her head. "I'm nobody." "No," he murmured. "You are becoming something." The children approached, surrounding her. Morel touched Elia's fingers gently. "You protected us." With his language, the aura whispered, "Only those touched by destiny speak the old tongue." The king's eyes never left Elia's face. "You will come with me." Elia's breath hitched. "Why?" His voice was quiet, but unyielding. "Because the night has claimed you, and now the court will sense it. You must be under my protection." She backed up a step. "You're saying?" "I can't stay here." The bakery lights flickered. "You are no longer safe in the human world," he said. "Not after tonight." Elia stared at him, heart-pounding, tapered, her job, her tiny apartment. Everything was about to shatter. The Vampire King extended his hand. "Come, Elia, before the night takes you in ways you do not choose." She trembled, and the children watched with wide, hopeful eyes. Elia stared at the Vampire King's outstretched hand, her pulse echoing in her ears. The children stood behind him, Leora, tall and composed. Morel, trembling with hope. Kale clutching her apron as if afraid she might vanish. Her entire life had been small, quiet, overlooked. Now the most powerful being she'd ever seen was asking her to step into a world she didn't understand. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. The king's gaze softened, not warm, but less cold. "You already stepped into it the moment you fed my children." He extended his hand more firmly. "And tonight you spoke words no human should know." Her fingers shook. "But if I go with you, everything changes." "Everything has already changed," he replied. Something inside her shifted like a door unlocking. The coin in her pocket throbbed with faint heat, answering the call of the king's presence. Slowly, Elia placed her hand in his. The shadows curled gently around their joined hands, not consuming, but guiding. Morel exhaled a shaky breath. "She chose us." Kale whispered, "Father chose her first." The king gave a faint, unreadable nod. "We return to the court. It is time." The path of shadows, Elia expected darkness to swallow her. Instead, it parted. The king's power wrapped around them like a cloak. The bakery faded, replaced by swirling mist. The ground beneath her feet shifted to smooth black stone. Cold air kissed her cheeks, crisp and ancient, when the mist cleared. Elia gasped. They stood before an enormous structure carved into a mountainside, spires of obsidian and silver. Glowing subtly under a moon far larger than Earth's, waterfalls of light spilled down the cliffs, shimmering like liquid stars. "This," Elia whispered, "is real." Leora nodded proudly. "The court of night." Morel smiled softly. "Our home." The king stepped forward, leading them through towering gates. Elia felt dozens of eyes on her, figures hidden in balconies, silhouettes moving in shadows, whispers drifting like cold wind. "Is that the marked human?" "She carries the crest, immortal." Chosen. Elia's stomach twisted. They're all staring at me. You carry the Vesper mark, the king said simply. They stare because they fear offending it. That doesn't make me feel better, she muttered. But Kale squeezed her hand. We will stay with you. The king glanced over his shoulder. They will not touch her. The hall fell silent instantly. Judgment of the court inside the throne chamber. A circle of dark-robed elders gathered, their faces pale and sharp, eyes glowing faintly. One stepped forward. My king. You bring a human into sacred ground. Explain. The king's voice cut through the chamber like cold fire. She carries our crest. She speaks the old tongue. She risked herself to protect my heirs. A ripple of shock spread. Another elder hissed, impossible. No human can speak our language. Elia's cheeks flamed. I didn't mean to. It just happened. She must be tested, said a third. The king's eyes narrowed. She is under my protection. That is all the test required. Fear and respect rippled through the room, but the eldest elder, tall, silver-robed, stepped forward gently. Human girl. Answer one question. Why did you help the royal heirs? What did you gain? Elia swallowed. The whole chamber waited. I didn't want anything, she said softly. I just saw 3 children alone in the rain, hungry, sad, scared. I know what that feels like. I couldn't ignore them. A hush fell. Even the shadows seemed to lean closer. The elder nodded slowly. Then she is worthy. The king's expression didn't change, but something eased in the air around him. The king's decision, he approached her, standing close enough that she felt the cold aura radiating from him. You have altered the fate of my lineage, he said. For centuries, no human has been permitted inside these walls. Yet you stand here because you acted with a heart braver than warriors and kinder than kings. Ilia flushed. I don't feel brave. That, he replied, is why you are. He reached into the folds of his coat and withdrew a new crest pendant of black metal shaped like the Vesper crown and 3 stars. This is a protector's mark, the gate. Not a bond, not a vow, simply an acknowledgement of your place here. You may return to the human world, or stay under my protection. Ilia hesitated. What happens if I stay? His crimson eyes softened just slightly. My children will no longer cry themselves to sleep in fear. The court will honor you, and I will ensure your safety. Her heart skipped. And if I leave, you remain marked, he said. The night will watch where you walk. Leah looked at the children, Morel teary-eyed, Kale hopeful. Leora composed but trembling. She touched the pendant gently. I'll come back often, she whispered. Your family now. The king's gaze flickered something warm, ancient, and dangerous. You speak like the night is yours, he murmured. She smiled weakly. Maybe a little. For the first time, the vampire king's expression softened into the faintest hint of a smile. Then let it be so. The knight's promise. He placed the pendant around her neck. Shadows shimmered along the chain. Elia felt a warmth spread through her chest, steady, protective. Morel hugged her tightly. Leora bowed respectfully. Kale whispered, Come back tomorrow. Elia wiped a tear. I will. The king lifted his hand, and shadows wrapped around her gently. When you wish to return, he said, speak the old word. The night will open. Vesper. She whispered. His eyes glowed in answer. Ilia closed her eyes, and the bakery formed around her again. The night outside was quiet. The pendant glowed softly against her skin. Her world was no longer the same, and somewhere beyond the veil of shadow, the king watched her return safely, whispering into the wind, The human girl fed my children, and now she feeds the destiny of the night itself.